Ja! Ja! On time, listeners. On time, riding a chariot pulled by two godly goats. I am Charles, your host, coming from the four corners, opening the four gates, and we are riding hot. Brought to you by Knights of Awakening. This is the Labyrinth. Welcome everyone, and another Labyrinth episode, and today's topic is going to be on titles. And titles are one of those funny little things that everyone seems to have, and no one seems to really understand the impact of having them. So today our goal, I guess you could say, is really to look into the impact that having these titles have on people. And we're going to look at a few specific titles, as we said on the Facebook page. We're going to have a little bit of a specific direction we're going to go with this for today, but we're going to have this topic coming up again and again in the future. So you need to get an idea of what the root of this topic is, where, I guess, what brought me to the topic and what's got me bringing it to you. The initial bringing of the topic of titles comes from actually an old book on mysticism, and I can't remember if it was one of the ceremonial high magics or if it was one of Aleister Crowley's works, to be honest with you. But in the book, as you're going through your ceremonies, you take on the title Apprentice de Majora, which means the major apprentice, or the apprentice of the major art forms. And when you do this, most people notice an incredible increase in capability, in energy. And that is a part of taking on titles. A title, when you take it on, empowers you to be something. It gives you the strength of purpose, the strength of direction, the strength of self, to feel that you've moved above or beyond a position in your life. It gives you the ability to move beyond the natural confines of just a limited being in your own mind. Now, within this, titles have several purposes and then several downfalls. And the question of the purpose and the downfall is the question of the amount of reality and the amount of illusion. So before I go any further, I'm going to break the big box for you. I'm gonna take the truth. Okay? We like to talk about the truth on the Labyrinth. And when I say the truth, I refer to the concept of God. I refer to the concept of the higher truth of the universe. I refer to a concept beyond our understanding. And in that, what I'm going to tell you before we go any further, before we move even one more minute into this show, it's all an illusion. All of it. All of the truth. All of reality. Everything you're perceiving, every sensation running through your body is an illusion. It is the reproduction of stimuli picked up through the body, presented to the mind, even on a spiritual level, assuming that the spirit is what focuses and hones the senses, assuming that the spirit is the underlying key point within all sensory observation. Assuming that the spirit is the primary power within the body, you are only perceiving a glance of what your spirit is truly perceiving. You as a conscious entity are only seeing part of this. And in understanding that it is an illusion, you're going to also see how this can crumble, but how it can also strengthen. So this is very important. You've got to get that understanding before anything else of the concept of the illusion within the self. Because it is that illusion that empowers this. That being said, titles work, beneficially at least, either as a path, a recognition that you're on a path, as an empowerment. This gives you the power to do this. Or as a shield, as a protective nature. A good example, and this is, before we get into the main titles, a good example, I'm going to give a quick, very small example of a title that works for each of these. Whenever someone takes on a path, say, as a bringer of justice, and they become a police officer to do this, which is also a title, that is a path that defines what they do, what they are in their life. A path, or a title of empowerment, would be more akin, and we'll be hitting on this one in the show, of wizard. And that's in the title of empowerment. This is claiming what your power is to be. And a claiming of a shield, a title of a shield, be someone calls himself a good person. They use that as, I'm a good person, so I couldn't do that. A shield, either internally or externally, or I'm tough. There's a good title people like throw. I'm a tough guy, so I won't fall down when I'm hit. That's an empowerment. It changes a mental state. It's an illusion. The truth, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, doesn't care about your title, but you do, and you make it real. And therefore, you have some power over the world in your title. But don't mistake your power for the power of all of existence, of all of creation, whatever you want to call it. Don't mistake your empowerment as the higher empowerment. Understand the limitation thereof, and therefore the importance of re-empowering and refocusing on these titles as you go, as you move forward. To start with this, the other big thing, like I said, Apprentice de Majora was a big impact. A big impact on me when I read those words, and I didn't actually take the title on. I took the title on months later, and then I eventually took on the title of Master de Majora, because that was the next obvious step. You go from apprentice to master of something. We'll be getting onto those in just one more moment. The other big thing that got me to hit on these topics is really Lord of the Rings, going through the Fellowship of the Rings, reading it. I hit the quote by Gandalf, and I'm going to quote Gandalf. This is the second book of the Fellowship of the Ring. And it says, I am the servant of the secret fire. This is an empowerment, okay? He's powering himself up with words. He's bolstering his spiritual gestalt. He is driving into his own soul to bring power out of it by, commanding what he is and re-empowering his own state of being. He says, I am a servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Anor. These are facts. Don't get me wrong. These are facts of his path, but these are also reminders. Not to the Balrog. Fuck the Balrog. The Balrog isn't going to care what you say. And this is kind of like when you go into a street fight. When you start telling yourself, I'm better than this, I'm stronger than this, you start psyching yourself up. The other guy, if you look at him and say, man, I'm going to beat you like I own you, he don't care. I mean, unless it does work to intimidate him. But as a rule, against most fairly mid-level-y, strong-willed people, reciting your titles does nothing for them, but it does something for you because you hear your voice echo in your own ears, and it makes it real. And that's part of the empowerment process. This was how he got himself ready to do the spell. And this is important from mysticism, from a mystical point of view. This is important in life. This reminder of who you are, this empowerment through these titles, gives you a base point to jump off from. It gives you a point of power that you recognize yourself from. Now there are risks in this. There are dangers. And we'll get into that after we get into the more detailed examples. I want to thank Reacher, a good friend of mine, a good friend of Sammy's, who brought to my attention the titles of Lord and Master. I wasn't initially going to tackle Lord and Master first. I was going to tackle Apprentice, Knight, and Master, because that seems to concern the communities that we're involved in the most, as these titles seem to fly willy-nilly across the screens. But I wasn't going to hit on Lord. But I am. I'm going to hit on Lord and I'm going to hit on Master first, and the differences of the connotations of these titles and the impact they have. First of all, let's hit on Master. Mastery is a path, more than it is anything. It means you are in a state of ever-growing and improvement, but also you are maintaining a level of accomplishment. You have reached a level of accomplishment. This is a path. It's also a shield. And people don't realize this. It's a shield against your own base nature. It is a shield against the opinions and the views of people around you. And we've seen it 1,000 times when someone takes on the title Master. Everyone else's opinion has an impact on them, but suddenly it's as if though they've grown roots. And it's because they have. They've recognized mastery of something. But in recognizing mastery as something external, they recognize mastery of the self to reach that point. They recognize mastery of their own path to maintain it. They recognize mastery of the world around them so that they may act upon the world. A master carpenter is one of excellent skills in carpentry. Excellence. Excellence is another part of mastery, but it's not the only part. A master carpenter's hands can fail them in their age. They're no less a master carpenter. They still have the knowledge and the depth of understanding, which is a core part of mastery. So when someone takes on the title of master, what they're taking on is the title of excellence in art form, excellence in ability, excellence in skill. They are taking on the form and the function of directed ability. They are taking on the form and function of greatness within, and then exemplifying that greatness through a craft, an art form. As this concerns mysticism, this is the Labyrinth, people. You're gonna get smacked with mysticism every 20 seconds. As this concerns mysticism, the term master, when you look at yourself, I am the master of flame. You master your elemental energy, and you find that element that means something to you. Or I am the master of wind. What you're doing is you're saying that I have an excellence in this area at which it now expands into all other areas. Master of flame also masters water. A master of flame masters the flame within themselves and can drive themselves in directions. A master of water masters adaptability within the self so that they may do other things. This term is a term of bleeding over skills and bleeding over understanding and gaining a depth greater than what was had before. Greater than the traditional level. Now what about Lord? Now Lord is Lord is a title of rulership. And I'll make a reference here, because it has to be done. God damn it, it has to be done. And if I don't make this reference, who will? Because it's my show. The Dark Lord of the Sith. Now we love that reference. People are like, Lord! When people pronounce that, they don't go dark. They don't go Dark Lord. They go Dark Lord of the Sith. They don't empower the other words as much because Lord is the title, and Lord means ownership. It means being above something. It means I'm above this position that everyone else is on. I've reached a point higher. It's a status symbol, and it therefore empowers in a sense of status symbols. These things of a lesser nature could affect a lesser man, but not a lord. And in that empowerment with being a lord of something, Lord of the flame, Lord of mysticism, Lord of martial arts, in this taking on the title Lord, comes with it regality, superiority. And this is a shield itself, an internal shield, but also an external shield. Who cares what they think of me? They're not lords of this area. Lord is also a path, because in being a lord, one recognizes their superiority, and they must take pity and kindness to a degree on those lesser beings that are not lords. But lord is it's more of a position than a path, where mastery, one must continue to hone, and master must continue to hone their skills, or thereby they will lose the essence of being a master. For a lord, it is more a title, a position of ownership, and thereby it lacks the path position. Is it lesser? No, it certainly, lord has a stronger impact. It has a harsher connotation, because it recognizes ownership and thereby inopposability. It recognizes that you cannot be opposed in this field. You are the lord of it, and thereby your word is final. In that, each title has its own position. Mastery suggests this extension beyond this area into other areas through greatness within it. Whereas Lord recognizes complete dominance over an area. Now, again, this has a big impact on the Jedi communities. It has a big impact on the mysticism communities. And I would be negligent not to list the lowest title next, and then the mid-level. The lowest title is, of course, in most people's eyes, Apprentice. And it's funny, because Apprentice has so many connotations to it. Apprentice means that you are learning, you are growing, and thereby you are doing the highest action within a field. Apprentice means that you're always looking to gain more. It means that you are working under someone else, and what this means is also you're putting someone on a pedestal. You are emulating them, but to be molded within a direction similar to theirs. For no apprentice becomes their master, they become like their master. With the apprentice, you are putting someone above you, in essence, to act as a shield in its own way, but also to act as a measuring stick, to act as a point of direction. You are taking this on because as an apprentice, you have found a direction you wish to go in. You are approaching mastery. You don't feel that you're at mastery yet, and you don't have a level of recognizable mastery. Recognizable mastery means that if we set you in a room with all of your accomplishments, are people going to say, yes, that's a level of mastery, or are they going to say, that's very good? And then leave it at that. And that's where the difference between apprentice and master comes in, and often the two are not as far removed as you would expect. I find most masters become apprentices again. In my experience, they will apprentice themselves under other masters, even within the same skill set, to gain a refinement of their abilities in the areas that they're lacking. And I myself do this, and I've met many masters. In fact, I can list masters. I can think of at least 3 off the top of my head who are apprenticed under someone else within their own skill set. And the best examples I have in this are in martial arts. People who go and they walk into the dojo without the black belt. They've already gotten the black belt. They've already been given the title of mastery. They may have been given the title of mastery 3 or 4 times over in 3 or 4 areas. And they will walk in either with a white belt or no belt. They'll walk in with something that signifies that they are beginning. Because they recognize that in order to master even further, they must become an apprentice again. And this is where the snake eats its own tail. That's an alchemical saying. It means that things must revolve around themselves again. The beginning becomes the end, becomes the beginning. And in that, every master must apprentice again. Every master, in taking on an apprentice, goes over all of the basics again and reinforces them for themselves. I tell you this truly, I learn more, oftentimes, from teaching someone than I did from trying to learn on my own. I gain more wealth of techniques, of knowledge, and of skill by helping someone develop their own, or by watching them develop their own and only being a guiding influence, only being there to help with the parts where they're stumbling. Because in that, I gain a new insight to my own strengths and weaknesses. You know, they're stumbling here, and I have to think, did I stumble there when I started? Well, yes or no. Why? In what way? What did this do? So Apprentice has its own field, as it were, of what it does. It provides a path. Most certainly, Apprentice provides the strongest concept of path, because you know you're walking. There is no question in your mind that you get to slack. You know you don't got it. That's why every master has to, if they're going to truly be masters, they have to be an apprentice also. Not necessarily to someone else, but an apprentice to their path. But it also provides a shield. Especially when it comes to social situations. You know, I am an apprentice and, this is my master. This puts that person now above you in a way that, we recognize not just in the Jedi community, but in the world as a whole. We recognize that you're moving in the direction of this person. You are a master craftsman, thereby your apprentices must be studying your master craft. You are a master metal worker, You can work metals into anything. You can forge a sword in a weekend. Good God, do you know how hard that is to do? You can forge a sword in a weekend and it will cut as if though it has the sharpness of 10,000 other swords. We recognize that your apprentices are not at that point, and therefore we do not expect as much from their quality, but we expect to see that improvement in that area. And any weaknesses can be forgiven because they're apprentices. And that is the shielding part of the term apprentice. You don't have as much responsibility to have excellence in the craft, excellence in the art. It's a shield. It's a shield of negation. I'm but a humble apprentice. My shield may not be that strong. In mysticism, apprentice de major is taken because it is apprentice. Because that way, when you mess up, and you're gonna mess up, that way when something doesn't go right, and trust me, it's not always gonna go right. When you're there casting a spell to change the weather, and instead of getting a minor storm cloud, instead of, all I wanted was a little bit of rain, there is a tornado blasting through your town, instead of being like, oh God, I have failed! Instead, you're like, wow, that's the errors of an apprentice. Thank goodness I'm not a master. I'd really be in trouble for this. It's a shield internally. It lets you not have to take that severe responsibility. Because if you were a master, you would have to look at this mistake and go, oh God, I fucked up big time. And you'd have to state it to yourself. You would have to look at yourself with that in mind. But it's also an empowerment, because you recognize as an apprentice, you must grow stronger. You must become better. Because if an apprentice stops walking towards the path of mastery, they have jumped off the path. And in that, they are no longer an apprentice. So, in taking the term apprentice, you must be moving forward constantly. And therefore, it has its own burden. The master takes a day off. He can let me prop my feet up here. There we go. A master can take a day off and say, I've come so far. Whew! That was rough. I've earned me a cold beer. I've earned me a sit back and a smoke in the shade and to say about how great I am. For the apprentice, they don't get that. That's where the apprentice's burden comes in. Yeah, the master's burden is excellence, and therefore they're always trying to maintain that excellence. Their weakness is in becoming content. Whereas if the apprentice's burden is never being good enough, then their contentment is in that they know they're always improving. And this is where these things start to turn in on themselves, The master has always got to be careful that they don't become, too cordial, too relaxed in their own abilities. I've mastered the right cross, My right cross is the most devastating punch on the face of the planet. And what about your jab? Oh my, look at that. I'd forgotten to polish my jab. The master must be weary of becoming complacent. And the apprentice must be wary of overburdening themselves. At some point, the apprentice is there, and to give an example, they have been working wood day in and day out, and they've blistered their hands, and they're bleeding. They're bleeding from their hands, and they're like, oh God, I can't go any further. They must be careful of this. They must be specifically careful that they do not overburden themselves. They do not push too hard. And yet, they must always be improving. Can't put the wood down for one day, but it doesn't mean you carve into the wood to the point that your hands are destroyed. At some point the apprentice must be careful that in carving wood, in the alchemical process of transmutation, as they are carving things out in their life, in their goal, in their path, whatever it is, that they do not start carving into their own hands. I've used up all the wood in the house. I've used up all of the wood in the world. Now I shall carve into my own hands, as I must be improving. I will carve into my bones as a master worker of materials. They must always be careful that their drive does not become destructive, just as a master must be careful that their complacency does not overwhelm them. Now we move on to the title of Night, and Night will be the last one we cover because we have nearly hit half an hour, my goodness. Night will be the last one we cover, and Night is one of the most important ones. And I am going to hit you all with a bit of Jedi preaching on this. And a bit of wizardly preaching too, because I am your resident wizard. I am your resident Norse follower of the path. I would say I am apprentice of the North ways. I am a master of myself, if nothing else. And definitely a knight of the Jedi path. And I'm going to tell you that within all of those, you can combine those titles if you must or if you will. I won't say it myself, and I don't expect anyone else to for me. But in the process of becoming a knight, this is where we get into specialized titles. And a person can be a knight wizard, And actually, we'll hit on one more after. In fact, damn, we've only covered 4 of them. This is going to be a longer show than I thought. I'm going to have to pick up the pace. A knight must be adherent to the knightly virtues, first and foremost. You know, we have a Jedi community that's up and it's coming, it's moving along, I guess. It's doing something, but we have a select group of us, a core group that demand excellence, and in that we understand that when the idea first came to us, the first thing that was brought to us was the idea of the knightly virtues. Why? Because we heard Obi-Wan Kenobi say that he was a Jedi Knight once, much like Luke's father. And from that moment forward, no matter how much we thought we knew, no matter how much we could say, oh, the path is ill-defined, and I can interpret it any way I damn well please because I like to think highly of myself. This is the other trap within all of these. And this is a terrible trap. When any of these titles start to be there so that you can think better about yourself, and the title Knight, most especially. When that trap starts to unfold upon you, you have lost the value of it as a shield, as an empowerment, and as a path. This is where the danger, and nowhere other than perhaps the title of warrior, which we'll hit on after the title of knight, nowhere but in the title of knight is it any more dangerous. Because people like to think knight is something, it's a rank, it's a badge of honor. It is. It's one bestowed upon you by the people, by a higher authority, or by virtue of achievement day in and day out of the knightly virtues. There was a time in Europe when a man was good and strong and noble. He may not be knighted by the queen or king, but he would be knighted by his fellow knights. They would say, we recognize you in the brotherhood, the order of what it means to be a knight, and we will move you up. We will give you that title because you uphold the knightly virtues, that you uphold the core concepts of knighthood. You are not just a man at arms, but a man of heart, a man of dignity, of respect, and worthy of emulation. Above all else, you're a man that we can say, yes, I either am like that or wish to be like that whenever I fail. This idea, this knightly virtue, was the strong core representation, and it was brought up in the chat on Skype here that you can buy titles now, and yes, to the sadness of all the world, you can buy titles. You can buy them with trickery. You can buy them with words, which is what happens most often in our little group, in our Jedi organizations. I see Sammy. Sammy's here typing, cash, cash, cash! Yes, the root of all evil is money. And in today's society, on a larger scale, if you have the money, and you know the person, and you have the willpower to part with a little bit of the green, and I don't mean leprechaun blood, I mean money, gold, dineros, the precious silver, the lifeblood, the universal lubricant. If you're willing to part with a little bit of this, you too can be a knight for only $99.99. And when you think about it, it devalues the concept. It steals away what it means to be a knight, but still the term knight has value when it's earned. I know one certified knight, the Duke of Paduke. Those who don't know the Duke of Paduke, then you'll have to just figure out who this glorious man is. I'll hold him up as a shining example at some point in the future. I am certain I'll drag him onto my show and have him speak on sword work, on knightly virtues, on the eloquence of battle and what it means to be a man. I'm certain that I'll pull him forth from the shadows, but I will not say his name, because he doesn't like people to put him on a pedestal. But he is the Duke of Paduke, and if you can't figure out who he is, well then, you need to listen a little more closely. I can make that a little challenge for our listeners. You don't post it on Facebook. If you figure it out and you want to private message me, go for it. If you're listening, Duke of Paduke, my apologies. for placing you on this pedestal. But he's the only knight that I know who's been bestowed the title. And yet, we recognize knights so long as they are being knights. We recognize people who adhere and follow closely the knightly virtues as knights because that is what the title means. It's what it represents. When you look up knight, eventually you will find knightly virtue somewhere in the list of qualities. You'll find the concepts of chivalry in the listed qualities, and therefore, and thereby, you will have a definition of knight that can be reached for and attained, even if no one ever puts a scepter on your shoulder or puts a sword on your shoulder and tells you to stand up as a knight. You will be a knight in the truest sense of the word, and therefore you will own the title in your heart, and it will be a shield. Because when you look at a terrible action and someone's like, you must do this terrible action because I have power over you, you'll look at them and say, no. You'll say it like that. It won't be some big grand, I, Knight of the Fourth Order, raising your sword, screaming no. You'll just look at them and be like, no. And you'll just put an end to their little tirade of power. Because it will be in your heart, and therefore it'll be a strong shield. It will be a path. When you're confused, what do I do today? I'm tired and I'm lost, I'm exhausted, I have no direction, no movement, no path. You'll look over and you'll say, oh, what are the knightly virtues? And in those virtues you will say, wow, what must I do to strengthen myself in them? And in that you will have forward movement, purpose, and direction. And in that you will have the empowerment. You'll say, if I am a knight, at the end of the day, if it meant anything, if at the end of the day it had any value, if it has any worth it all, I will do these things today. That is what happens when you take one of these titles in your soul. But that's more than just a word. It's more than just a sound emanated from our simian brains. It has something more. It has meaning. And therefore it acts as a shield. Now when, we gather around and we say, yes, you put in 7 months doing our thing, and we've went over and you've met our course requirements, you've done this, that, and the other, and we don't know if you hold to any of these virtues, but we assume that you might maybe possibly do knightly things. And therefore, because you put in the invested time and lubricant, you must be a knight, and we recognize you as that, and the title can never be taken away. That's worthless. That is, you know what that is? That is armor of rust. Wow! The armor of rust. What a powerful weapon. The armor of rust, for it shall protect you as rusty tin. It will protect you from yourself, from your own darknesses, as would thin rust. Nothing, not even leather. Leather is better than rusty metal. Purely rusted iron cracks. I could crack it with my bare hands. Leather is stronger than that. But leather is soft like the heart. And therefore, it is better to have this title in your heart than to have it on your name. But to have it on your name, to hold it in your heart, that is empowering on many levels. So this is the kind of thing, and I will give you the mystical portion of this. You've summoned forth an entity, and it threatens to break your control, threatens to break your will. And you have taken on the title, the Knight of Flame, the Knight of the Fire. And you say, I am a Knight of the Fire. And in this it is true. You uphold the concepts of the flame. You uphold the concepts of the knightly virtues. You uphold the sheer intensity of what it means to be a knight. And in saying that, you re-empower yourself with all of the knightly qualities and virtues. You strengthen yourself with resolve, and then it is easy to... Minor entity. Little demon. You know what? I have mice that are more dangerous. And you should see the mice. The mice that come into my home, you have to shoot them with a shotgun to have any chance. No, not really. Make it sound like I live in the inner cities here. Within that, night can be an empowering. We'll move next, and I'm going to try to get this in under the 45-minute mark. so bear with me. I know I said I was trying to shorten the episodes, and it is what it is. Within that, we have Warrior next. Warrior is one of those titles, most everything I've said all night, I can say in Warrior, except that Warrior gets so misused, it gets so abused, it gets so beaten up and misrepresented because people crave the power of the title. I am a spiritual warrior. I fight with fluffy bunnies and rainbows. What the fuck? What the hell? Oh, my masculinity is repelled by this statement. I can feel my muscles bulge with anger. Why? Because this is not what a warrior is. A warrior is one who makes war on themselves. A warrior is one who makes war on the world around them. A warrior represents a concept in a time long past. A warrior charges head first into battle and comes out because they're stronger. For the warrior, there's no such thing as rest. Only recuperation. For a warrior, there is no such thing as defeat. Only delayed victory. For a warrior, there is nothing but the goal, but the victory of that moment. Nothing else will do for a warrior. I understand what people are doing. You look at these titans, these powerhouses of virtue, of strength, and you say, I wish I could be like that, but I'm a little girl. And you know what? I'm not picking on femininity, and I'm not picking on women. I have met women warriors. I have met women warriors that would kick most of your asses. But they understand what it means to be strong. They know what it means to never give up, to fight to the bitter end. And therefore they are warriors. But when people take and they pervert, there's a power word for you, perversion. They pervert the concept of what a warrior is. They strip away the warrior mentality. They strip away the warrior essence. And they say, I am a warrior of peace. And in my peaceful warriorship, I will go forth and spread forth fluffy bunnies and flowers. And in that you will all see the power of my flower power. This is not warrior. This is the opposite of warrior. Which I suppose that's what they're looking for. But they try to steal power from the name. They hope that it will make them, they hope that whatever it was they seen in that other person that they don't have the strength to live up to, they can draw forth from it. And that they can empower themselves. And they do, psychologically. But yet, these people, when they pervert... Now, I've met spiritual warriors. I've met people that are spiritual and warriors. I have met people that have a deep compassion for the world around them. And yet they are warriors. You engage them in a fight, and you risk your own life. I've met these people. These people earn the title, spiritual warrior. But too many people pervert the title. They try to draw power from it because they see the strength. And what they don't recognize is that this strength doesn't come from the word. It comes from the action warrior. And that all they have done is created a false image. A false image that when it's shattered will leave them broken and destroyed. And they do. They get shattered and broken and destroyed. These are the same people that, I am a spiritual warrior, and 3 days later, oh my God, my life is so terrible. What happened, spiritual warrior? What happened to your armor of justice? What happened to your righteous indignation? I stubbed my toe. The hell? We have a large UK audience, and for them, I know the statement, the hell is not sufficient. So I'll say the bloody hell? I understand that it has a lot more impact. Yes, I'm going to cuss in every language today. Because it's that curse-worthy. I am going to curse this concept of putting this fake image on and never adhering to it. I see so many people that say, I am a warrior, and I say, so you hone your body? No. Of course you train rigorously in the arts of the warrior. You push yourself in the path of the warrior then, constantly seeking improvement in the warrior arts. Nope. Tell me that you train diligently against opponents? No, I couldn't do that. I'm terrified of getting hit. What the bloody hell? Bollocks! Now, I'm going to pull all of the UK terms now. All of the UK curse words for today. Since I know that one has such impact on people. I call bullocks and I call bullshit. I call fucking bullshit at this point. This is not being a warrior. Being a warrior means having a strength of resolve and soul that is hardened by the push and the power and the faith of the body being put through trials until it comes out stronger. And you know what? I've met a lot of strong warriors who take the title and know what it means to be. And you know, not all of them look like Conan. You know, not all of them are like, kill your enemies and crush them and see them driven before. No, most of them are decent family men. Decent family women. Most of them are decent individuals who you would not look at them and go, that is a powerful warrior. But you know what it is? The reason they are powerful warriors is because they hone in the path. And I have met others that are far stronger physically that are not warriors. They do not follow the warrior path. They do not look for warrior virtues. They do not seek the warrior essence. They do not have the warrior spirituality, and they are a different title. They are fighters, and we will get into that title at another day. We have one title left, and I'm going to only hit on it briefly. I'm going to wet your tongues. So that one is the title of wizard. I have seen this title taken as an empowerment by those that do not meditate, that do not train, that do not focus the wizardly arts, that do not seek the inner truth, that do not seek the inner alchemy, and thereby do not seek the power and the abilities of a wizard. Instead, they buy their books off of their shelves. They play their little games. They spend their time doing little ceremonies. They never strengthen the mind or the soul, and yet they take the title wizard because they read one book and they've done no spells. They've not affected one life with positive change through mysticism. And as a result, they are but a petty thing. But we will hit on the title wizard in a future episode. Because for now, you all have one task as you are looking to take on titles yourselves. And that one task for all of you out there listening today, as you are saying, how can I ever live up to what he has just said? How can I ever reach this star? There is one path for you, and that is to awaken the night within.